Welcome back to the Nerd Theorist, and today we're going to pick up where we left off and this time talk about all things Urza. Specifically, the Master Melder, that is Urza Lord Protector. What we're looking to do is meld this guy every game into the powerhouse that is Urza Planeswalker. Now to do this, there's some hoops that we need to jump through. We have to have both the Mightstone and the Meekstone plus Urza on the battlefield, and pay 7 to activate Urza's ability, which the Mightstone and Meekstone helps us with. But I think when you look at this Planeswalker, you can see the payoff is well worth it. So let's jump through the first of many hoops and figure out how we are reliably going to get this artifact out of our deck and onto the battlefield. Now, so secret, if you've watched the Mishra video, then you're going to be well aware of how we do this. Tutors is the answer, and there are no less than 16 of them, which I think would be good to include. Now, Urza's mana reducing ability, that's going to prove pretty clutch here, because it's not only going to cheapen the casting cost of the Mightstone once we've got it into the hand, but it's also going to cheapen the casting cost of the majority of these tutors. So, Enlightened Tutor looks to probably be the pick of the bunch, but Fabricate also does a very good job here. I like Thalia's Lancers because not only is it going to find us our key card, but it's also going to leave us a body on the battlefield. Now, if we're running a heavy artifact theme, we could go with Kuldrova Forgemaster, Reshape, Whir of Invention, and Arkham Dagson. And if we are running a lot of artifacts, then why not should we include Inventor's Fair as one of our lands? And if price isn't an issue for you and you have one in your collection, then Transmute Artifact also works wonders. Now, Tamio's Journal and Skyship Weatherlight, they are both going to get you there, but they have their own hoops to jump through. So not the greatest of options, but are options, and along them lines, if you can reliably generate 14 mana, then Planar Bridge works for you because you can cast it and activate it in the same turn. Now, Tezzeret the Seeker, he needs one more loyalty, and then he's not just a big target to try and defend for a full turn rotation. You're going to struggle to get the second ability off when people realise that you're playing an Urza Meld deck, unless we could reliably bump him up one loyalty. There are ways to do that, which I will mention later in this video. Search for Glory is still a very cheap card, and if you've got some snow lands, you've got a bit of extra upside here. And now I know Mystical Tutor doesn't get the Mightstone itself, but does let you get one of the other tutors that I have just mentioned. Or it could get you something else if the situation calls for it. So, my absolute favourite tutor though in this deck would be Moon Silver Key. And it's just for pure affordability and accessibility. You get a 2 mana tutor when Urza is out that could find our meld piece, get us a land, or even grab us a Sol Ring if we need it. Don't sleep on this guy, guys. Seems very good, and I expect to see it in a lot more decks once people start to realise its power and affordability. So that's the first hoop jump through. We've got a Mightstone in our hand. I know some of the tutors are going to get it onto the battlefield. That's always a bonus, but usually we're going to have to cast it. So we want to get that casting cost down, and Joyous Familiar also helps with legendaries being cheaper. Foundry Inspector's got cool new schematic art, so we definitely want that in there. And Ethereum Sculptor, well, that's just another artifact reducing classic. Cloud Key also works here, and similar is Sten the Paranoid Partisan, who's in our colour identity cheap and same as Cloud Key, gives us options. But let's say we want to focus on some instant and sorcery reducing, so we want to reduce the cost of them. Sten and Cloud Key, they also work, but Baral is a pretty mean option if we're going to load up on the counter spells. We are in Azorius after all, and the beast that is Grand Arbiter Augustin is going to give our opponents a headache whilst helping us along the way. Oh, Primal Amulet, that's one of my favourites in a deck where we're slinging spells, so if we've gone heavy on the instant and sorceries, that'll be a really easy include. Anyway, you've either cheapened your Mightstone or cheapened a bunch of the spells in your deck. You've got the Mightstone onto the battlefield, now just to activate that 7 mana ability. And to help us do that, we've got Training Grounds, Anointed Peacekeeper or Heartstone, just to bring the cost of that ability down. So, all that work done, we've got ourselves an awesome Planeswalker. First one in Magic history to ever have 5 abilities, and he lets you activate them twice. Pretty nutty. And well, this is our payoff. So I think what we want to do with this deck is really lean into that Planeswalker theme. So you've got Oath of the Fairy, which gives us that extra activation on top of the 2 that we already have, meaning we can go straight to Supernova as soon as we meld. And bouncing a target, well, that's just some extra gravy for a non card. Oath of Jace and Oath of Gideon are 2 other Gatewatch oaths that you could easily include here. And then Chain Veil is a great piece once we've got a few more walkers out. Now Spark Double gives us a second melded Urza just for pure comedy gold. The look on people's faces when you have not 1 but 2. Well, I think that's enough to invoke a fold from me. Deep Glow Skate, well, that's just a Planeswalker deck all-star. Now I quite like Urza resembles the Titans, called a Gatewatch and deployed a Gatewatch, all of which are helping us find more walkers to overwhelm our opponents. The Jeru not only gets us the best walker in our deck, but also protects the ones we've already got out, and Lae'zel lets us get to our ultimates that much faster. Resourceful Defense is a bit of a funky tech that lets us pump our walkers out of nowhere. And who could forget Luxior's Gift, which seems to be a good include in any Planeswalker heavy deck. So we've leaned heavily into this Planeswalker theme, we've got a bunch of support there. But we're going to need more walkers to take advantage of that spot, that's for certain. So Ugin the Spirit Dragon is one of my absolute favourite Planeswalkers in the Commander format. And his little baby self, Ugin the Ineffable, is also an easy include. Elminster and Wilken Rift both help cheaper instant and sorceries that we cast, so if we want to lean that way, they'd be good includes, and if we're leaning on that theme, then Narset Power of Veils and Narset Transcendent also help, if that's where we're going to go with the deck. We are in Azorius, so it would be rude not to include the powerhouse that is Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, or his baby self, Teferi Time Reveler. Now he's going to give a headache to any other control players that are at the table, so it's a tough passive to play around. But why stop at 2 Teferis when we could justify spots for Who Slows the Sunset, Temporal Archmage and Pilgrim, and Master of Time? Ajani Steadfast can pump the rest of the gang pretty quickly. If you get his ult off, then that's going to invoke a fold from all but the saltiest of opponents. Which, if we are mentioning backbreaking ultimates, look no further than Jace Unraveler of Mysteries. But hey, we're in blue. There's so many Jaces, it is hard to name them all, but baby Jace of Rin's Prodigy gives us another creature and another bit of instant and sorcery synergy. The Mind Sculptor was a standard beast when he came out, but not so much in Commander. Still, he does work here, but not quite as backbreaking as when it was in a standard format. Venser the Sojourner and Dovin Band, they're not the best Azorius Planeswalkers, but get their ultimates off and you are easy odds on for the win. Who could forget Khan when we are talking about Urza and all his iterations? You've got the Great Creator, Living Legacy, Scion of Urza, and of course Liberated, all of which could easily justify themselves the spot. Now, I know it doesn't make a whole lot of sense thematically, but why not include Tezzeret Artifice Master or Betrayer of Flesh, as mechanically they definitely do. Now, there's probably loads of Planeswalkers that I've missed there, but there's 25 of probably some of the ones that I think are the best options you could include. And it's going to be a ton of fun getting them out alongside the melded Urza. But once we've got them out, we're going to need to protect them. and in control of his decks, I quite like the effects Propaganda, Sphere of Safety and Ghostly Prison bring. And if we are light on creatures, then Windborn Muse, Baird, Steward of Argive and Archonauts of Absolution, and also Archangel of Tithes, they are bringing in the same effect, but also a body to block. Now, best way to protect our Planeswalkers is keeping the board clear, and that leads me nicely onto my next point. Ramp, removal and draw, which it wouldn't be a Nerd Theorist deck tech without mentioning them. Removal. We want to go heavy on the board wipes here. Cyclonic Rift is probably one of the most played cards in Commander, and for good reason. Your 4-mana creature Wrath effects are fairly commonplace these days, with Day of Judgment and Wrath of God being the classics, but Supreme Verdict also stops those pesky counterspells. Shatter the Sky and Depopulate are some fairly recent options we've got, and Sublime Exhalation is usually costing us 4 mana, so happy days. We also want a bit of targeted removal, so Path to Exile and Swords to Plowshares are easy includes, plus Generous Gift captures any pesky threats that we can't handle, but it leaves behind a 3/3 which we're not too bothered about. We can deal with a vanilla 3/3. Now, counter spells are something that I struggle personally with in Commander, as it's always hard to know what's worth casting when it's being casted. But including counterspell, Dovin's Veto, and any of the free counterspells you've got your hands on, maybe such as Fierce Guardianship or Force of Will, if you think your playgroup is at that level. Ramp is going to help us get to our expensive Planeswalkers early, so in addition to the cost reducers that we've mentioned before, you'll want a full suite of Sol Ring, Arcane Signet, Felwar Stone, Azorius Signet and Talisman of Progress. If you've got a Mana Crypt and Vault, and I quite like Fort Vessel and Mightstone plus Wayfarer's Bauble as an easy include. It's also worth noting that Moon Silver Key that we mentioned earlier could help us find any of these ramp pieces, so it's a lovely bit of tech that you've got there. Midnight Clock, that can help us refill our hand in the future turns, and Liquimetal Torque helps us with the artifact synergy. Smothering Tithe and Smuggler's Share are pretty nice includes here and can get out of hand fast if they are left unchecked. Don't want to go overboard on the ramp in this deck because it's a bit slower, more control-y, so it doesn't need to get off to that super fast start, but you do always need ramp to keep up with people. Now, draw, some of the walkers that I mentioned, they're going to help us with our draw situation, but Rhystic Study and Mystic Remora, they really generate that card advantage, so they're easy includes here, and one with the machine could be a draw 5 for 3 mana if you've got both Urza and the Meekstone out. Tezzeret's Gambit, that gives us an extra proliferate trigger and can be cast for 1 less by paying 2 life with that Phyrexian mana symbol. Sphinx's Revelation, that can help us draw a bunch if we've got the mana available, same case with Pull from Tomorrow. Treasure Cruise and Dig Through Time are good late game cards that help us refill our hand with not a lot of mana invested, and if we really need to refill our hand, Windfall is an absolute classic. Mangara the Diplomat is a much needed creature that is also going to help us with dissuading our opponents from attacking us, and Esper Sentinel is a worse Rhystic Study, but still a bonkers card. So there we have it, guys. And that's ended up being an Azorius Planeswalker themed deck, and I think that is the way that I would go about building this Urza Meld deck. But like I said at the start, there are many ways you could build around this, and I'd love to see some of the builds you guys have put together. So comment down below with your Urza deck ideas. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, stay nerdy.